Spread across the 100 plus AWS services, there's a multitude of wonderful security features, whether it's the new AWS private links, which is the evolution of private API endpoints, to something as simple as the S3 server-side encryption. There's a lot of great security functionality spread throughout the AWS Cloud. There are, however, a few services that are dedicated or have a significant impact on security that you really should know about so that you can take advantage of them. And we're going to start with the IAM service, the Identity and Access Management Service. This is built into the fabric of the entire AWS Cloud. It's the foundation of everything you do for security within AWS. It's a very simple concept to wrap your head around. IAM defines who is allowed to do what within your account. You really should take the time to know this service like the back of your hand because it is so critical. But moving out from IAM, the next two services that are fundamental to security aren't security focused. They have security aspects to them. So the first is CloudTrail. CloudTrail is very simple to turn on, and you should turn it on if it's not on already. One check will enable it for every region within your account. And what it does is it keeps a verified record of most of the API calls within your account. And as part of that record, it has a digital signed identity attached to each call. So you know that the user Mark made a call to EC2 to run 10 new instances at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. And here were the configuration of that parameter, the parameters of that call. So it's a very good service. It's literally a trail of all the activity within your cloud, and a lot of services downstream build off that data. But just as step one, you need to keep that record and start it going. So it should be one of the first things you turn on the day you open your AWS account. And similarly, the CloudWatch service, a lot of people just think, oh, it's just metrics and alarms for usage, maybe a little bit of billing. But there's a huge amount of security functionality and use cases within this service, because not only are those alarms and metrics really handy from a security point of view, but also there's CloudWatch events and CloudWatch logs, which allow not just system level logs, but application and custom application logs to be piped up for later analysis as well. So CloudWatch is an extremely powerful and flexible service in general, but a lot of good security aspects to it. Now, getting a little more nuanced is the Amazon Inspector service. This was launched a couple years ago at reInvent, and what it does is it sits on an EC2 instance and it runs to find any vulnerabilities, any configuration mistakes that you've made, and then it will raise a finding and say, I found that Apache is misconfigured and you have your user permissions file is exposed. Well, you probably want to fix that. Or you're using an old version of structs and you really are exposed to CV 2017, blah, blah, blah. You need to address that. So Inspector is a really good tool to run consistently and regularly within your CI/CD pipeline, because it's going to constantly generate those findings for you that you can either address directly or you can mitigate with a third-party tool. Now, on a little more of the compliance side, there's AWS Config. This deals with CloudTrail data and creates a timeline, a very nice visual interface to all the changes that have gone in to key elements of your AWS account. So EC2, S3, VPC. It's a compliance and auditor dream. You can go in and say, what did my environment look like on Tuesday at 12 o'clock? And you'll see this nice visual build out of everything that was currently there and how it changed over time. Again, very simple to set and forget. It just churns in the background, very low cost, and a huge time saving because it's essentially continuous compliance. Now you have a little additional options within there with the config rules feature, which lets you fire off a custom Lambda function in response to events that happen that config notices. So you can pull in third-party information around compliance and make that continuous compliance dream a reality. Similarly, there's the AWS Artifacts service. It's really more like a page, but they call it a service. It lets you request AWS compliance reports. So if you need to be PCI compliant in your application, a huge chunk of that work is done by AWS already. Artifact lets you pull those reports at any given time so that you can include them in your audit response. So very important 1-2 punch there with AWS Config and Artifacts for all your compliance needs. Now, going a little deeper on the security side is another pairing of services. There's the KMS service, or Key Management Service. This helps you manage your cryptographic keys. Very simple. They've done a great job at abstracting away a lot of the complexities, a lot of places where people stumble in implementing their own key management. And you can simply make a request to access a key, and if you have sufficient rights or your application has sufficient rights, it will get that key securely in return. And of course, you get a complete trail of who did what when, which is wonderful. Matching pushing that is the new Cloud HSM service. HSM is a hardware security module, and it has a whole bunch of crazy physical things in to make sure that nobody tampers with your cryptographic material, and if they do try it, that material gets destroyed because it's better safe than sorry. Well, AWS has abstracted all that complexity, all that expense away, and made Cloud HSM a really simple way to safely store your cryptographic material, whether that's for use within AWS services or within your own custom application. Pairs very nicely with KMS because now you have a safe place to store your keys and a great way to use them back and forth. Great 1-2 punch for crypto, and you really need to be investigating that if you're storing cryptographic material or if you're managing crypto in your application layer. One of these two services is going to make that a task a heck of a lot easier. Dive in, KMS, Cloud HSM. Similarly on the crypto front, but far more familiar to most people, is the certificate manager. This is where you get your HTTPS, the S in HTTPS. AWS has its own certificate authority, which is pretty crazy, but they're at that scale that it makes sense. And again, they've automated everything. So instead of generating a key request and sending it through a manual process and getting the response back, they've made it so you can script that end to end. Of course, easy deploy it out to where you need it on your load balancers or on your CloudFront distributions. And certificate recycling, very important. So when that certificate expires and you need a new one, that's built into a process, so at least you can automate all the pieces that are there to make sure that you don't have those embarrassing certificate expired, and warn your users that your site is no longer safe. So certificate manager is a little where most people get exposed to cryptography, but again, a critical piece to delivering web services and web applications to anybody. So all the way to the edge, 100 plus edge locations, that's in not regions and availability zones. These are special edge locations distributed around the world. Most people think, oh, that's where Route 53 and CloudFront is delivered from. Very true, but also AWS WAF, the Web Application Firewall. This is a great way to stop layer 7 application layer attacks. So things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting. You can put either blacklist IPs or whitelist IPs to access your backend if you want. Really great way to stop attacks as far away from your data as possible, and that's always what you want to be doing. Similar to WAF, AWS Shield runs on the edge as well. Now, Shield is one of these great services, whether you know it or not, it's protecting you. It's a DDoS attack defense service, so AWS will automatically help mitigate these attacks because they're in the best place to do that. They control the underlying infrastructure that we've all built on top of, and down low is where the DDoS attacks are best stopped. There's an advanced version offered if you are a common target or a high profile target. The advanced version offers immediate help during an attack. AWS will have one of their security experts help craft custom rules, help respond to the attack to make sure that your application stays available throughout the entire DDoS cycle. Wonderful service. It's beautiful just that it's transparent and you never know it's there protecting you. It's just a great output. It's another thing that AWS has done to make our lives much, much easier. If you're dealing with S3, Amazon Macie is invaluable. It's a service that does machine learning on your data within your S3 buckets, does a whole bunch of ingest, looks at what you've got, and then puts risk numbers to it to say, hey, this looks like credit card information. This looks like personally identifiable information. You probably should be locking this down. Or, hey, this bucket is publicly accessible. We've seen that a lot lately. Macie will raise that flag. It also does some basic CloudTrail analysis to tell you how your account is being used. So that you may take additional action. So if people are using it off hours and they shouldn't be, if they're accessing it over unsecure networks, you can find that out. A whole bunch of great information in Amazon Macie. Another one of these wonderful services when you set it up. After you set it up, it just does its thing and it'll let you know if there's a problem, but if there's no problem, it just keeps chugging along. Really great hands-off security, and that's what I love as a security pro. More services where your defense is not required for you to be doing active actions all the time. These services should be doing the heavy lifting. Amazon Macie is a great example of that. Set it, forget it. If there's a problem, it'll let you know. Now the last one I wanted to mention is not a security service, but is insanely useful for any type of operations, which of course security is a small subset of, is AWS Lambda. Lambda is event-driven code, so something happens, your code executes. In security, stuff always is happening. All the services we've rattled off today trigger some sort of output as an event, as a notification that you can hook into with Lambda. And that means you can start setting up automated incident response, automated security awareness, automated compliance building. So you can augment all this with Lambda. Again, not dedicated to security, but insanely useful within that context. So you've seen the wide variety of AWS services that are dedicated to security or have a significant impact on security, and hopefully you've got a little better idea of how these all work together and where they're focused. But of course they're part of a larger security practice, which is actually part of your operational practice. It's how you run applications. You need to stop thinking of security as one thing that needs to be done on its own. It's part of just how you build and deploy and deliver applications. Amazon makes that very, very simple with this suite of services from AWS. Lambda lets you stitch all these things together, which is really, really great. You can start to get into these event-driven models for security response, for compliance recording, and just generally integrate this deeper into the fabric of what you do to serve your customers, whomever they may be. So if you like this video, please leave a comment below, like it, subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out content all the time. I'm going to dive deeper into each of these services in an individual video. I think this overview is important just to understand the landscape. Again, we'll see you around. Have any questions, leave them below. I'm happy to address them in another episode.